Formula One is no stranger to high-octane drama, but the latest twist has left fans and experts buzzing like never before. McLaren's top brass team president Andrea Stella and CEO Zak Brown are fuming, and their sights are firmly set on Red Bull. The team has raised a red flag, calling for a thorough investigation into Red Bull's relationship with their sister team, RB, following a rather puzzling turn of events during the Singapore Grand Prix. The race, which saw McLaren's Lando Norris in a dominant position, took a sudden shift when Daniel Ricciardo, driving for RB and seemingly out of contention, set an unexpected fastest lap. This robbed Norris of a crucial point, and in a championship as tightly contested as this one, every point matters. The question on everyone's mind was Ricciardo's late fastest lap a mere coincidence, or was there something more strategic and perhaps sinister at play? Could Red Bull be using their connections to manipulate outcomes in favor of Max Verstappen? This controversy has put the spotlight back on Formula One's complex team dynamics, and McLaren isn't staying silent. But here's the kicker: if McLaren's suspicions are right, it could not only shake up the standings but also the integrity of the sport itself. With only 6 races left in the season, this could be a pivotal moment that changes the trajectory of the championship. You won't want to miss a second of this. We're about to dive deep into the details, so make sure to stick around until the end, because what we uncover might just surprise you. Is McLaren onto something bigger than a single race strategy, or is this just a case of sour grapes? Let's find out. Part 1: McLaren's suspicions spark a new debate. McLaren's frustration began to boil over following the Singapore Grand Prix, where Lando Norris, in a commanding position, was set to steal crucial points from Max Verstappen's lead in the Drivers' Championship. Having clocked the fastest lap on the 48th circuit, Norris was in prime position to snatch an extra point that could help close the 52-point gap between him and Verstappen. But out of nowhere, Daniel Ricciardo, driving for Red Bull's sister team RB, pitted for fresh soft tires and went on to beat Norris' best lap by nearly half a second. This surprise move took everyone off guard, not least McLaren. Ricciardo didn't even finish in the top 10, meaning he wouldn't be awarded the point for the fastest lap. However, the damage was already done. That single point, lost to Norris, could play a significant role in the season's final outcome. McLaren's Andrea Stella stopped short of accusing Red Bull and RB of conspiring, but he did suggest that the close relationship between the two teams needed to be scrutinized. He hinted at a broader conversation about sportsmanship and fairness within the sport. In his own words, Stella said, "This is a big matter. When you invoke the idea of sportsmanship, you need to approach it with a sense of responsibility. I don't know the exact facts, but it's clear that RB went for the fastest lap, and they succeeded. For now, we must take it at face value. But it's important to address how teams behave in such situations moving forward." The McLaren team believes this situation raises important questions about how two closely related teams can influence race outcomes, especially when championships are on the line. For Norris, the loss of that 1 point may seem small, but as McLaren's drivers and engineers push to claw back ground on Red Bull in the final 6 races of the season, every advantage or disadvantage could be crucial. As the race unfolded in Singapore, it was clear that McLaren had the upper hand at Marina Bay. Norris was driving at his peak, poised to secure an extra point for the fastest lap. But as the race approached its final stages, Daniel Ricciardo, who had been running at the back of the pack and out of contention, suddenly pitted for a fresh set of soft tires. This move raised eyebrows, as Ricciardo's race seemed to have no potential for improvement. Yet, just after his pit stop, he delivered an astonishing lap time that outpaced Norris by nearly half a second. Ricciardo, finishing outside the top 10, was not eligible for the point awarded to the fastest lap. But in a sport where every second counts and every point can make or break a season, the implications were clear. Norris had lost a valuable opportunity to chip away at Max Verstappen's lead in the championship. Given that McLaren was now fielding one of the fastest cars on the track, this small setback could have far-reaching consequences as they try to close the 52-point gap between Norris and Verstappen. Andrea Stella, McLaren's team principal, wasn't about to let this slide without voicing his concerns. While he didn't outright accuse Red Bull and their sister team of foul play, he made it clear that there needed to be more scrutiny on the close ties between the two teams. "We're not here to make baseless accusations," Stella said in a post-race interview. But when two teams operate this closely, and something like this happens, It raises questions. Sportsmanship is important, and we need to ensure that every team acts independently, especially in a championship as competitive as this one. It's a sentiment echoed by Zak Brown, who has long been vocal about what he sees as the unfair advantage Red Bull gains by having a sister team in the same league. This isn't the first time the issue has come up, but Ricciardo's fastest lap has brought the conversation back into the spotlight, prompting McLaren to consider whether it's time for the FIA to step in and examine the relationship between the two teams more closely. Brown and Stella's frustration is not just about the lost point. It's about the broader implications for the sport. If Red Bull can use their sister team strategically in this way, it sets a dangerous precedent for future races. McLaren knows they need to stay focused, but they also want to ensure that Formula One remains a fair playing field for all teams, not just those with an extra card up their sleeve. While McLaren is frustrated, they are not alone in observing the peculiar dynamics between Red Bull and their sister team, RB. This isn't the first time there have been whispers about how closely the two teams work together, but Daniel Ricciardo's fastest lap in Singapore brought those suspicions to the forefront in a new way. The timing was uncanny. Why, when he had nothing to gain in the race, did RB pit Ricciardo for a fresh set of soft tires? Was it really just to give him a parting gift in what could be his last Formula One race, or was it more about taking a point away from McLaren? It's hard to ignore how Ricciardo's actions benefited Red Bull. By denying Lando Norris that extra point for the fastest lap, it helped Max Verstappen maintain his significant lead in the Drivers' Championship. Although Ricciardo didn't receive any points for his effort, McLaren feels that Red Bull may have played a long game, using RB's position to strategically impact the title race without technically breaking any rules. Stella hinted at this in his post-race comments, saying, "I wouldn't go as far as to say they conspired, but it's definitely something worth discussing." The proximity between the two teams raises questions about the fairness of the competition. This is supposed to be a constructors' championship, where every team competes independently. If teams start collaborating in ways that impact race results, then we've got a problem on our hands. Despite Stella's measured response, it's clear that McLaren is more than a little suspicious of Red Bull's tactics. The team has been pushing for greater scrutiny of the relationship between Red Bull and RB for some time now, and this latest incident has given them fresh ammunition. In their eyes, the situation at Singapore highlights the need for clearer boundaries to ensure that no team, no matter how powerful, can manipulate outcomes using a sister team as a strategic tool. Christian Horner, Red Bull's team principal, was quick to downplay the situation, insisting that Ricciardo's late pit stop was nothing more than a way to give the driver a memorable moment in what could be his final F1 race. "It's simple," Horner said when asked about the incident. "Ricciardo was out of the points, and we thought it would be a nice gesture to let him go for the fastest lap. It was his farewell race, and we wanted him to enjoy it." But for McLaren, the optics of the situation are hard to ignore, and they believe there may be more to this story than Red Bull is letting on. McLaren's frustration doesn't just stem from a single race, it's about the larger impact that team alliances could have on the integrity of the sport. If one team can essentially influence race outcomes through strategic moves by a closely connected sister team, what does that mean for the fairness of Formula One? This is the deeper concern that McLaren has been trying to address for some time, and the Singapore incident with Daniel Ricciardo has only intensified their call for action. As Zak Brown has frequently pointed out, Red Bull's connection with RB goes beyond just sharing a name. Both teams operate under the same ownership umbrella, and while there is nothing technically illegal about this setup, it creates a unique advantage that other teams do not have. Brown has long believed that such alliances allow for strategic plays that can skew race outcomes, even if they don't violate any specific rules. In his eyes, the situation with Ricciardo's fastest lap is just another example of how these alliances can undermine the spirit of competition in Formula One. "We've seen it before, and we'll likely see it again," Brown said when addressing the media. Red Bull has two teams under their control, and they can use them to manipulate results in ways that aren't available to independent teams like McLaren. It's not about breaking the rules. It's about bending them in a way that gives them an unfair advantage. That's why we've been pushing for a conversation with the FIA about what these relationships mean for the sport. While the FIA has yet to take any formal action on McLaren's complaints, the Singapore incident has reignited the debate over whether teams with close alliances should be subject to stricter regulations. After all, if Red Bull can use RB to indirectly influence the outcome of the championship, what's to stop other teams from forming similar partnerships to gain an edge? For McLaren, this issue goes beyond just one race. It's about protecting the integrity of the sport for all competitors. Christian Horner and the Red Bull team continue to insist that there is no foul play, but the optics of the situation have left many wondering whether the FIA should step in to investigate the nature of these team alliances more closely. The fact that Ricciardo's fastest lap occurred at such a critical moment in the championship only adds fuel to McLaren's argument that this relationship gives Red Bull an unfair advantage, one that could shape the outcome of the entire season. McLaren isn't alone in their concerns either. Several other teams have privately expressed frustration with the growing influence of Red Bull and RB, even if they haven't been as vocal about it. The question now is whether this latest controversy will finally push the FIA to take a closer look at these alliances and what they mean for the future of Formula One. At the heart of the controversy is Daniel Ricciardo's fastest lap at the Singapore Grand Prix. Red Bull insists it was nothing more than a gesture to honor Ricciardo, who may be leaving Formula One after this season. Christian Horner described it as a way to give Ricciardo a memorable moment, while RB team boss Laurent Mekies even joked about giving Ricciardo a Christmas bonus for his efforts. However, McLaren sees it differently. For them, the timing and outcome of the fastest lap seemed too convenient to be purely sentimental. By taking that 1 point away from Norris, it helped Verstappen maintain his lead, keeping McLaren's driver further from closing the gap in the championship. While it's possible this was simply a feel-good moment for Ricciardo, the broader impact it had on the title race makes McLaren believe there's more to it than Red Bull is admitting. Andrea Stella summed up the situation: "I have no solid evidence of any wrongdoing, but the fact remains Ricciardo's fastest lap took a point away from us, and that could be decisive in the final standings. Whether intentional or not, it's something that should be looked at."